Adonai, beautiful, beautiful people. We will try that again. So if you jumped onto our other stream, my apologies. For some reason, my camera just decided it didn't want to work. New computer, so I'm not sure whether there was a energy glitch. Welcome to our weekly. Every week we do on a Thursday at 10 a.m. a quantum channeling where we connect in with infinite intelligence. You get to bring your questions, you get to bring the different things that you would like to have answered. And the more of us that gather here and collectively bring our frequency, collectively bring our souls, the more that we're able to share different perspectives. We can bring more human information, we can bring different galactic, we can bring creation, new earth, we can look at political things, we can look at all layers of the human experience through these direct channels and in ways that are of contribution to all beings. So if you haven't tuned into me before, I am Giaya Ariati, and I am a conscious business consultant, as well as the master teacher of the purity of Isis and the founder of the DAC process. So if you haven't heard of any of these, I initiate a woman through their purification process, through the Baraka process, which is an ancient Egyptian goddess Isis lineage purification cycle, so that individuals can come into their transcended medicine, as well as I have started to share a global movement, which is the DAC process, which is a modality that has been created and designed to assist every individual to transform the story, the construct, or the wounding, and stop cycling and repeating karma or pain patterns forever. So it's a complete consciousness transformational process, and it is what I use to heal my pain, my suffering, my trauma story, and be able to come a clear, present, and embodied woman. And if you are here for New Earth Leadership, you're looking at the conscious entrepreneurial education, you want to shift into a new realm of business, then you might be resonating with starting to walk the path of your Dharma, your soul, and starting to build a lifelong mission, a lifelong service based on your individuality, what it is that you have here to offer. But before I go any further, what I'm going to invite each and every one of you to do is when you're dropping in, say hello, let's get some engagement going. Let's tell YouTube that we want some more people in to create this vibe, this portal, this consciousness expansion. And we are going to take some deep breaths as we do. So placing your name if you are watching here and live, and we are going to tell the algorithms how much we want to create some magic on YouTube today so that we can expand consciousness, recode, realign DNA, and instantly heal. Because one of the most beautiful things about direct channeling is that when there is no separation point and you're in full receivership of your mind-heart coherence, your bandwidth expands. And as your bandwidth of consciousness expands, the physicality of your being also alchemizes into a new state of being, which allows for natural and total healing without needing to know what was in the way of it. So instant healing really is getting into the direct connection of source, or the original origins of our essence, our 0 point. And our 0 point then gets to alchemize out without the separation or the ego, the story, the narrative in the way. So when you don't have that, healing just happens like that. It's a really powerful thing to do, because you can heal something in the layers of consciousness instantly, and the physical actually can be healed instantly as well. But some of us have some stories around hierarchy of the higher levels and the lower levels of reality, which make that process of instant physical healing sometimes a little slower. But we can physically shift our parameters and our body and our biology instantaneously when we have come to that level of mastery. And there's many stories around the earth of this, different masters that disappear. And thank you. I will check my Wi-Fi. So as you're jumping in, so weird. My Wi-Fi or your Wi-Fi? Okay. My Wi-Fi never drops out. How bizarre. What's going on? Mercury retrograde. Okay, so we're going to ask for the Wi-Fi to hold a nice strong connection, to allow for a nice strong and powerful holding, so that we can get through the whole of this transmission with no cameras going off, with no Wi-Fi glitches, and with a completely beautiful clear picture and sound. That is my request and my intention. So as you are dropping in, let's have some beautiful breaths. Let's create this sacred space and this receiving, and allow for our energy to alchemize. And the intention is that this space is for the all. So everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to be of contribution. Everyone is welcome to share. Yet if you are coming from self-service, or if you are coming from a level of detriment to others, it will not be welcomed in the space. It does not mean you won't be welcomed in the space. It means that anything that might be there will be instantaneously alchemized in that instant healing capacity. So let's take some nice, strong, deep breaths, knowing you are completely safe, you're completely held, you are completely protected, so that you can really relax into the receiving of this channel. We're not going to do a whole big hoo-ha talk about, as we did in our last quantum channeling session, because we want to get straight into the juiciness. So we're going to breathe right in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And breathing in and breathing out. Now, if you've been a part of these experiences, what we want to do is we want to really tell your nervous system through the tonality of my voice that it's safe to relax, that your heart, it's safe for your heart to start to open, and for the bandwidth of consciousness to expand through you, from you, in the above and in the below. And so you'll hear that my voice shifts depending where I'm expressing from for what I'm trying to achieve. And that's the use of using tone and frequency and vibration to support and create more in the form of intention. So my intention is for each and every one of you to feel safe, each and every one of you to feel the clear opening into source intelligence, and to come into that full receiving. And I want you to see an infinity symbol that moves from your heart up into the infinite layers of the heavens above, down through the heart, all the way down to the lowest realms of the void that you could possibly perceive. And then you want to move that infinity symbol from within all the way out throughout humanity, throughout the entire expression of reality and creation space. And so you're allowing yourself to weave yourself in the inner, the outer, the above, the below, and that creates a nice, safe, profound opening of a toroidal field. And the toroidal field is what will hold this space. The toroidal field that we're making as a collective, and any other beings that choose at any point in time to receive this, will also build this. And I want to talk about this. This is a really powerful thing about transmissions and the bending of time and space. Is what we're doing right now is we're creating an experience. We're creating a being basically in our collective energy, and anyone that comes in and out gets to be of contribution to this moment of time, to this experience. So when someone in 5, 10, 15 years comes and receives this, what they do is they come back to this point of time, and they get to gather and receive all of the frequencies, all of the codes, all of the information, all of the light pathways, the synapses transformation, and it gets to get carried through the time-space continuum. And so when you have a clear intention to only build on that of sovereignty, of truth, and of a clear and safe environment, as well as allowing for it to be one of expanding consciousness, we get to have a ripple effect by acknowledging that once we leave this space, this still exists. So you could go into your own meditation and you could come back into the space and receive things that perhaps you didn't have the capacity to receive at the time. And so in this, you might feel that there is a lot of energy that comes up. You might feel a lot of sensation. So please do receive this when you can be present, and you can really receive the energy without influencing, no driving, no trying to focus on something, allowing yourself to really drop into the capacity that is available here. So how this works is you drop your questions into the chat box, and we have the questions that you would like to ask the infinite intelligence field, and we allow for the channel to answer the question that is the most resonant in the totality of the whole. Now, I will be upfront. I have so much serotonin moving through my brain, through my body, so much energy from my own personal experience and landing in the early hours of today that I feel quite high or altered in state as it is. So we will be keeping this session to the hour, and we did start a little bit late, so it will go over a little bit, but we are allowing ourselves. Now, if you don't have questions, which is always funny because everyone always has so many questions for the conduit, for the mentor, for the oracle, and I get on a live and I'm like, here, ask as many questions as you like, and the questions don't come. So it's quite funny. So if there is no questions, or if there is limited questions, what I'll do is I'll tune into the collective, I'll tune in, and I'll just directly channel what wants to come through. So if you have pre-prepared and bought yourself a question, please pop it in the chat box now so that we are able to start to receive what is here. And remember, no question, it doesn't have to be really high or really intellectual. It doesn't have to be really large in your bandwidth. It could be something that you haven't asked, or you've been seeing on social media and you've been confused about, or it could be a trend, or it could be something that's going on, so that you get clarity for yourself. Because if you've got a question about it and you're confused about it, I can tell you that there are many, many, many people that are confused around what that actually means. So we are looking in here, and we have I have a lot of frequency, so I'm not surprised that we might have limited numbers. Plus, I put the wrong link on, so it is perfect as it is always. Da, 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 na, 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 na. Now, do you know what's interesting? I consciously don't know what interstellar is, but so from my human, I'm going to actually Google what interstellar means. I feel like that might be alien in some form. Interstellar meaning there is a space, something about it. It's not a word I use. If something happens or is located in between the stars, it's interstellar. So the question is 2027 most likely, as of now, a year of humanity's first interstellar contact. Okay, let's go there. Let's take a couple of deep breaths together. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. And breathing out. Breathing in. And breathing out. Allowing for all of you to soften, allowing for easeful receiving, allowing for clear, concise transcription, translation, allowing for all layers of your being to interpret, to be able to solidify and to fully embody and integrate. There is currently a false light agenda that is occurring through your spiritual and conscious communities. Specifically, there are individual channels, high level educators, and different coaches or individual influences in this spiritual paradigm that are misleading those that are in the connection, communion, or the following. Now, this has a level of follow up from our previous channel in the previous week that you may require to listen to further interpret what it is that we will speak to in this moment. The question that you're asking for 2027 and interstellar communication and connection is one that some of the starseed galactic individuals and the Galactic Federation or the light teams are placing within the consciousness field and the bandwidth of the human being. However, what is misunderstood and confused by the humans that are either astral traveling or remote viewing, receiving different channeled information, is that they're receiving from a galactic consciousness, a consciousness that appears to be some kind of extraterrestrial, some kind of alien entity, or some kind of external between planetary experience. Now, these individuals, of course, as we know, have not physically traveled to any planetary councils, nor have they physically moved out of this dimension into space, nor have they physically experienced as a human being any interaction with aliens or other planetary constellations. And so, what becomes apparent is that the narrative and the information around star seeds and galactic consciousness and interpretation becomes that of a skewed interpretation of the mind that is receiving it. It perceives and believes that these different energies that they are communicating with, often themselves through a different formation or interpretation of their own galactic self or their own galactic archetypes, has come through to share information in the assistance of their own consciousness evolution. However, the information is received from the higher octaves of ascension that does not allow for a grounded human perspective to be able to understand what is taking place. For those that have experienced or perceived to experience what you might consider extraterrestrial experiences, UFO abduction, or different encounters with something that is perceived not to be human, there is a level of what you could call where the mind has a fragmentation that exists in what you would call the galactic consciousness that has created a connection point of trauma in the fragmented part of the galactic self that needs reconciliation. So what happens is there is either an invitation for some kind of alien or extraterrestrial being to come into the experience to guide one into recognizing where the fragmentation exists and creates a sense of trauma that requires healing and alchemizing. So what is occurring is a confusion that aliens or Lyrans or reptilian construct or a real physical reality. What we are here to say is that it is a consciousness reality. It is a reality that exists within the conscious mind, and the mind requires to witness and move through the different layers of the constellations or the planets to allow oneself to see the totality of what has created the ego entity. The ego entity is not an expression of the true natural self. The self that has forgotten these planetary experiences, or what you might consider DNA strands within your own physical human body, the flesh that moves through your spinal column, is awakening itself through these different alien, starseed, or energy lines. So those that are stuck in the starseed narrative that continue to talk about galactic consciousness are stuck in the bandwidth that doesn't allow for them to evolve beyond and recognize that there are no extraterrestrials that will be coming to the Earth. We are the extraterrestrials. We are the planets. We are the stars. We are the entire expression of the universe, that there is no universe outside of us, that the universe is within us. And this is a challenging concept to be able to digest because, based on so much misconception of truth and of reality, and the ability to be able to transcribe what is true and what is illusion of mind in reconciliation of the true self to come into wholeness, means that there is many supporting narratives to these stories. There are many supportive illusions to make them feel like that is very true and real. And for that individual, it is. So if you believe that extraterrestrial visitation will happen in a specific point of time, or there will be some kind of interstellar experience, then what you'll find is that you will create something within your own experience and your own consciousness that will be perceived as a visitation through your astral body, through your sleep states, and through some form of communion and conversation with your own galactic consciousness. But let us remind you that it is not an outside energy coming to you. It is the inside forgotten self trying to return to you through the way that you will listen, receive, and communicate. It takes time to alchemize the distortions so that these aspects of self can be integrated. But when you integrate the galactic consciousness and you recognize the illusion around that of beyond the firmament, you are able to move into more of a unity consciousness field of expression and start to work within and beyond polarization and duality. Beautiful. So, taking some breaths in between as I open my eyes to read the next questions, and if there's comments and different things in there or clarification, please do place it there, and we'll should have just stayed in channel. Okay, so. It's so nice to see familiar faces. Thank you for the familiar faces that are always supporting my work and getting this information out. I want to really acknowledge that because what it is that I share is very expanded. It is the totality of the human experience, and that's because I effectively force myself to go into all of these different dimensional realities and alchemize every aspect of myself to bring it into physical, present, embodied form. And this information is not easily received. It is not easily understood, and it is a very high level of consciousness that takes quite a lot of conceptualization and time of integration. So often people have been listening to some of my transmissions, whether they've come from a soul expression, more of my human personality, or different forms of high level transmissions through galactic, through universal, through all layers of consciousness to bring one back to wholeness, to activate the remembrance of who you truly are so you can live in alignment with your soul, right? Because your soul is the totality of your human in consciousness and what you're here for in this incarnation. And it's the only incarnation. So for me, it's been really important to find truth and to ensure that the truth is spoken. And it comes with some backlash and some rejection and some projection and some abuse. And that's okay. But it is so important for me to stay in integrity with the truth so that I can continue for those that are true truth seekers that are really here to become transcended within themselves and to meet their present state of life to be able to do this. So I am going to go up and have a look at some of these questions. Please do stay in your breath. We're having a glitch. Do, 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 do. Okay, so there's a question from Kalia. There's a question from Kalia that is Neil Donald Welsh channeling the highest, purest divinity now, and how was it in the past? So I don't even know who that is. So I don't have I have no perspective on that at all. And just from what I'm aware of, what I'm receiving. And I'm not going to directly channel this because I'm going to save my brain cells. I'm just going to look through and have a look. So, whoever it is that you're talking about and experiencing, he has a capacity with the 12th dimensional consciousness, and there is a purity line and a divinity line coding through the frequency in the channel there. So that's very similar to myself. I hold the purity line and the divinity line, which is an ability to be able to receive a high level of information that comes without the distortions of certain shadow aspects, certain mutations, certain agendas, certain past history. So whoever this individual is someone that I would feel has a level of intellectual understanding as well as a connection to the origins of truth that can bring through a clear interpretation of many different concepts and areas of information and provide pathways of awakening and assisting one to the return to the I am. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I would absolutely love to know who this individual is at some point because, yeah. Okay, how do we go deeper into meditation to retrieve details of technology? I see something that I am supposed to develop it, but I know nothing about technology. Beautiful. All right. I want to answer so many of these in my human, but I won't. What we would first like to clarify is that technology is perhaps not what you have perceived it to be. Many of you that are drawn and resonant to these kinds of communication channels don't recognize that what you are receiving right now is a technology. What is being developed and what has been developed through many of these transmissions is different galactic and universal expressions of technology, different quantum technologies, as well as different frequencies, vibrations, and the beginning stages of what you might consider blueprints for the forefront of the future of your realities. Technology is that of information that has been brought together to create a specific pathway of what you might consider a manifestation into an actualized experience. Technology being that of a communication line, you could see that telepathic communication is a technology. You could see that our Wi-Fi connection here is technology. You can see that working with that of sacred geometry and information in the form of sums and frequencies in the form of numbers, you are able to create technologies. So when you're receiving something about technology and you perceive that you have no awareness or information about technology, we would like to ask if that is really true. Because each of every one of you holds your own unique technology. You hold your own capacity with different technologies and your own ascended masteries. Ascended mastery and technology work in communion and union together. So the more that you connect into your ascended mastery through the presence of meditation and through the ability to drop into the receiving and the trusting, you'll be guided with where your unique technologies exist. One of the ways that Gia has been guided to look for her own technologies has been to listen to the body and the vessel. The body has multiple technologies that are created within it. You might see these as points or connections to that of different chakra systems. For instance, one of Gia's current clients has a technology that allows for an opening into the plane of a new dimension, or a plane of experience, we should say, that is allowing for those that are coming into heart-based consciousness to connect into this plane of experience, download the reality, and come into that technology of the heart. This is done through the third eye, the throat, and the heart chakra. And this is a very specific channel of technology that is used within the light spectrum. Technology can be that of the mind being that of the form of a channel. So, whether or not technology is a physical manifestation is the question. Some of you will receive different technologies that you're here to create in the form of amalgamating or merging different current technologies with future technologies. Future technologies being some that will not have a physical formation. Technologies that are brought through in the form of what you might already see, that there are different individuals that are using crystal grids and different formations of technologies with different precious metals and codes and different symbologies. This is all ancient and current physical matter technology. And so you have the ability to create technology with the trust of what it is you are receiving. How we would suggest is through looking at the three primary expressions or consciousness sectors, or what you might consider realities that your technology is to serve or to hold. So if you can see it as the Trinity that holds three different areas of a goal state or a outcome, then you can start to ask in your meditative states what these three energy consciousnesses are, and start to work on each and every one of those pillars of the technology that you will be bringing through. You'll start to see whether or not it is a physical, whether or not it is physical and ethereal, whether or not it is just an energetic technology that you sit and you work and build in the ethereal realms in your meditation. Really, there is no limitation. It is what your soul desires to create. It is what your soul is willing to be devoted to, and how much time and energy you want to place in the space of this level of mastery. Learning to be able to receive the information and to download either the codes, the language, the words, the instruction manuals to create a physical experience of a new technology requires many hours, much devotion, and it needs to be aligned with your sacred heart for it to succeed and to continue forward. So, with that awareness, it is of invitation that you sit with your own knowing around whether or not this technology is yours, whether or not it is something that has been placed upon you to channel or guide or bring through or create or invent, or whether or not it is that of God's will in the totality, to start to get some definition around where it's coming from, as many people are being intercepted in their meditation. Many individuals are being detoured from their path through different altered experiences because they are unable to stay present in their physical form when they are in communication such as this. If Gaia was unable to be fully present in her physical body in this moment, we could quite easily take over her channel through her vocabulary, and we could bypass her heart to tell you information that could be quite destructive. Therefore, it would create a completely different experience, and yet you may not even recognize, especially if you're also not able to be completely embodied in your physical experience. And this is where it is coming into an awareness around something that is taking place and heavily infiltrated in your current human experience. Is many individuals, based on this new spiritual trend, rather than recognizing consciousness evolution and conscious transformation, that the spiritual trends that have taken over much of your mainstream formation of what spirituality is creating a false light narrative and a separation point to that of what you might find as a true pathway to self. When we pause at moments like this, it's because there is heavily impacted energies that do not want the communication to come through and to be alchemized out. At different points in time, some of you will have areas of energy that you are unawares of that will be activated and will come through in the form of wanting to contain, keep, or reject the information. And so there will be moments of alchemy at different points you receive these channels that are required. Oh, jump me out of my body. Whoa, what is that? Okay, breathe. Different agendas. Mare amata karamo te shipata karameta kianai. Ish kapata karamata korumata kerianai ati. Ish kapata karamata kerianai. Ese ti shatata karamata kianai. Andata karamata kerianai. The different frequencies and agendas that are currently infiltrating the spiritual realms are trying to create a false interpretation of the pathway into the light rather than the pathway into the self. This means that you will continue to disassociate, step out of body, be ungrounded, have high levels of frequency plummeled into your body, and be unable to stabilize the information or the technologies that are your truth. These technologies that are being provided through false channels or through self-healing initiations, through what you might consider trial and error, are riddling the communities that are sharing messages at this current point in time. And so, what that means is technology, such as a direct channel like this, can be influenced and infiltrated to then use the technology that is being provided by the false light narrative or the false light agenda, being that it is important for us to remind you many, many times that the Galactic Federation and different galactic councils do not have sovereignty as their desired state for the planet. Although universal law has reinstated sovereignty, their desire is to continue evolution and to continue the evolution of their consciousness, not in a point or a state of being in the sovereign integrity of others. Their narrative is peace, love, and light. Their agenda is meeting higher states of consciousness. It is not to come into truth. It is not to come into a point of grounded stability. It is not to come into unconditional love of all things. It is a story of the upper realm that requires to be met by the collective consciousness at this point in time, because you have spent so much time in that of what you might consider dissension, separation, or disconnection. And so what's happening is a flip in the collective, in what you could call technology of the collective consciousness, moving out of the lower realms of many descended aspects and moving into the upper realms. There is many pockets on earth that will continue the dissension paradigm, and that of the choosing of a reality that holds lower densities and the form of a descended experience. Yet there is many pockets on the planet that are not considered new earth realities, that are of higher ascended expressions of consciousness, that are riddled through and moving through their points and pockets of land on the earth. So whether or not you are here for ascension, descension, new earth, or middle way, that will depend on what you are feeling resonant to with each communication. Yet if you are someone that is here for the truth, if you're here as a truth seeker, if you know you're here with the knowing of the expansion of consciousness as your primary words, then dissension, ascension narratives will only further confuse you and will manipulate your mind and can create spirals of contrast for you to remember yourself through the human pain and suffering story. I have no idea what just happened at my window, but that was so interesting. I love it when interference tries to come in, right? My camera didn't work, and then people were talking about Wi-Fi, and then there's strange things. I thought they were birds hitting at my window. Someone does not want me to share today. I actually knew a couple of days ago, I forgot all about it until right now, that there is a specific group or being, I think it's a being, that is trying to infiltrate and distort how people are perceiving me. And so if this has ever happened to you, if you're in my close circle, you already know I've talked about this, but basically it's been deconstructed now. It's been banished and sent to the void until it chooses to evolve. But there was a hologram of myself and my essence and my soul, and it would go into astral or sleep states, and it would manipulate those that I was in a close connection with, or it would even go to people that I hadn't connected with and given them misleading information to pull them on a path. And it comes through this false light energy, but it also has this really like icky thread that comes in there. So it is really important to be aware of when you are in your meditations who you're talking to, and to be very clear around what you're asking to connect to be very clear around your boundaries in all layers of your experience, right? In your day-to-day human experience, in your ethereal experience, in your sleep state, and what you allow to enter into your energy field, because 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 you can be tricked very quickly in vulnerable states. And we know this in our when our human being is vulnerable, we are more at the effect, right? I guess there is a level of vulnerability when I'm channeling, because I have my eyes closed and I am in that connection receiving a high level of information. I have an awareness of what's going around me, but I don't know what's going on around me. I've created a safe container, but it doesn't mean that things outside of that container don't want to still come in and try and destabilize, which is what happened, because I still have energy that's moving through my chest in relation to a highly activated nervous system over a long period of time that is just relaxing, but it's still got those residual cellular resetting, recharging, recalibrating energies taking place. So please do be very aware, and you can create a declaration that will assist to help you with that. Ti shambata karamo ti sheteki ande anaya te tekiaria soskuru koshoto korianaya te kirianaya to koshoto korianaya. So one of the questions, I feel like I kind of already answered this without meaning to. I have heard a voice or received information 4 times in my life from 3 different sources, always without warning. I can receive, but I cannot voluntarily connect with these entities. Why not? Um, uh, So many of you may come into experience in the initial stages of opening your crown and your heart chakra into receptivity in the form of information channels. And what you could consider these points of time that are sporadic, that come from nowhere, or that are what you might consider a spontaneous experience, whether it be the words of God, whether it be some kind of visitation, whether it be a Kundalini experience, that what happens is you go through what is considered an activation into that connection point or that receiving. Now, that activation can stay in the activation point for many, 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 many lifetimes. Or you can start to clear what is in the way to returning what you received. So, in those experiences that you have heard different energies or consciousness or messages or received from different consciousness and beings, or that of a higher expression of your own consciousness and your higher self that was perceived to be outside of you, that it is required that you clear the story, the construct, or the matrix paradigm of thinking between you and your receivership. So, if we can explain it in the form of Kundalini, many individuals go through a Kundalini awakening and they may experience days of bliss, days of complete transcendence, days where there is no effect. And then they start to go back to their normal state of being. This is because that's an activation. That is a longer activation, yet it is still an activation. Then you reset back to the point that you were at, where the blast of energy has broken up enough of the density in your formation or your consciousness to start to say, this belief over here cannot stay. This thought form over here cannot stay. This person here cannot stay. This expression of myself or emotion cannot stay. And so you're required to go through an intensive clearing process. The clearing process moves the frameworks of consciousness that are effectively the separation from your receivership and your return to that connection point. It is impossible for one to hold an activation unless they choose to simultaneously completely clear and purify everything that was in the way through a very fast point of enlightenment or receptive receiving in that moment. Now, this happens for some, but for the majority, you are choosing step by step processes. There are points that you might receive a transcendent experience where you dissipate what is called the separation point or the distance between time and space, which is consciousness narrative. The only thing that keeps you present, keeps you in the separation from the presence of receiving, is your story of the distance between that ability to receive. So when you talk about, I don't know how to receive, I can't receive, I am unable to receive when I try, it only happens sporadically, that's your narrative. That's your separation point. That is the area that you can start with and look at why you are unable to connect into your receivership, because there is a construct of reality that is in the point of from here to here, in the ability to reconnect to that end point. When you are able to go through the full clearing and the purification, then you will be able to access this information through its clarity, whether it's from one of those entities or channeled points of expression, or whether it be that of connection to Kundalini. Yet, for many, and this is important for you to be aware of with the different individuals and leaders that are walking through your experience, is how integrated are they in solidification? So you activate, you have this first profound experience, this one off moment. Then you go through clearing and you clear away all the stories and the constructs of experience and the densities. And then you start to purify by returning the frequency, the connection points, what was lost, the soul fragments, the light. And then what is required is solidification. Solidification is what you would call embodied wisdom. If you are not in solidification, then you are still dancing in the realms of choosing to only connect into it when it is suitable for you. I witnessed this and that of the collective at many points of time where individuals are only using their clear gifts in a session for 1 hour of the day, yet they are calling themselves a high level being. 1 hour of a 24-hour period is a lot of work in integration to be done, a lot of clearing of story. This means that they are out of integrity to what it is that they are saying, perhaps, that they have come into the embodiment of. Embodiment means being able to, day in, day out, be able to hold a specific point of connection and conversation. Now, the embodiment point means that you don't necessarily express from that all of the time. You don't necessarily receive specifically from that consciousness all the time, but you are able to express in its expression, which means you have multiple expressions, you have infinite expressions. Sometimes you will channel from a certain point, sometimes you will receive from God, sometimes you will receive from the void, sometimes you will receive from your body. This is all different points of what you would call embodied wisdom, because there are different realities that you are connecting into. Mate patakaramati shambate pataramate anae. Yamase ti shate ati. Di shutokoria tatekiande anaya tatekiaria tatekiande anaya tatakoyana. Beautiful. Mind, body, soul, connecting to your Trinity exactly while you're here and you're receiving, allowing yourself to connect in and receive from your heart. Then you'll really receive the frequencies that are here to assist and to be of contribution. We've got 10 more minutes. How can we still continue to stay in the love frequency? Beautiful question. Thank you. Compassion. So how can we still continue to stay in the love frequency, compassion, when we encounter triggers or anger within or towards someone? These are the questions that I really like because they're often misunderstood by many coaches and not given the full spectrum or the polarity of the interpretation of the fullness of that bandwidth. So, taking those breaths down into your heart space, allowing all of you to be here in the above, the below, the inner, the outer. Love-based consciousness requires the full purification and crystalline heart coding to be solidified in the human being. This is a specific energy, frequency, or octave of information. A love-based consciousness reality. This is not unconditional love. Unconditional love comes through the many other layers of interpreting reality, self, and dimension. But love-based consciousness is the ability to stay in the heart and to be able to experience from the heart, to be able to stay open-hearted. The majority of the human race has only come into the activation of this point of time. That means that there is much clearing taking place on heart-based consciousness, or what you could consider the heart chakra. This is what the main focus is for human evolution at this point in time. It is not for humanity to move into unity, but to recognize that they are coming into a heart-based consciousness of ability to see and to create a new experience without the same level of hatred, rage, and pain. Heart-based consciousness, and if you are being triggered by your experience, it is because there is somewhere within your own heart that still holds some form of victimization, some form of rescuing, some form of the persecutor in the form of the martyr, the judge, or the archetype of the superior or the inferior identities as some of the more primary ones, that there is a form of perception that takes place that one is doing the wrong thing. Heart-based consciousness comes when you still have strong polarization of good and bad, right and wrong, love and hate. When you hold a really strong definition between these energies, then you'll find that if you have this ability to be in a point of trigger or activation in the full feeling of strong connections to sacred rage, it's because you're holding one spectrum or the other. If you're an individual that resonates with being love-based, then you're going to have a strong repelling and a curiosity and an attraction to that of the opposite spectrum so that you're able to receive the full interpretation of consciousness. Because you cannot become fully embodied in heart-based or love consciousness until you've experienced the full realms or levels of what you would consider hatred. And so when someone is triggering you into hatred, when someone is triggering you into anger and reactivity, what is taking place is something that you love deeply is being threatened. There is something that you love or you want to keep in the sense of your consciousness, your internal identity, that you are unwilling to let go of or allow to be seen in its pain. It is also an opportunity when many are experiencing hate that they have repressed, suppressed expressions of hatred, or where they have indeed been the exact same energy. Because there is not one human being on the planet that has not represented in some form these different energetic expressions. Now, how we can explain this is if you have hatred, it's because you love something so deeply and you are unable to know how to love in the point of clarity and purity yet. And so you feel hatred when that is threatened. If you feel this, it is because there is some kind of mutated perspective of what love is, what self respect is, what respect is, what confidence is, what compassion is, what care is. And so these points of confusion become the way that you respond to reality. You respond to reality through the confused constructs or the entanglements of your own mind. And there is nothing that you are doing wrong. It is that information has become glumped together, or what you could consider one, when it is multiple expressions. So if there is triggers, it is important to recognize that what you're seeing in another that is causing intensity that you have within you in some form, that it is present in your experience, whether it be that you have attached to it and denied it, or whether you have rejected it and held on to it. That there are polarizing ways that you are mirroring this and experiencing this. And so if you see that everything in your experience that is triggering you is actually you, that you are triggering yourself, you can have a little more compassion and understanding that you don't even realize that you are behaving in that way, that you have behaved in that way, that you are continuing to think those thoughts, feelings, and creating that experience for yourself. The only reason that triggers occur is because you're asking for them to come into your experience so that you can see your own consciousness and reconcile it back into the wholeness of your truth. This allows you to use life as your healer, to use life as your consciousness expander, and to use life to provide information that sometimes you find harder in your autonomous state to find, because the mind has become very tricky, very intelligent. And the more that you educate yourself, the more that you find yourself reading or intellectualizing or coming into higher states of spiritual evolution, your mind can use that against you so that you don't see the very simplicities of what is here. What I am experiencing in my reality is my creation. And where am I responsible for other people acting the way that they are toward me so that I can empower myself to transform my reality and own my own experience and change it through alchemizing my wounds. Mate shamba karamate ishkapata karamote ishkata arati shatakeri muskoto shambatake anai aro anai isha uska ataramata eshe itata. All right. So we have hit 59 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, I am grateful for your presence, grateful for your receiving. Please, in this moment, we need to ensure that you have recalibrated. So don't just jump off this and go for a walk. You might feel faint, lightheaded if you've really dropped into the full receiving. And if you've allowed for the frequencies to do what they are designed to do through the language. And so I would like to invite you all to start to use that infinity symbol by using your mind and weaving it through your above and your below to integrate and stabilize what you have the capacity for. We're only asking for you to hold the frequencies, light, codes, consciousness, bandwidth, and the Trinity information that is supportive to your human experience. And to stabilize that in your field now, by taking 3 really strong, powerful breaths with me, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, and breathing out, and breathing in, and breathing out. And on a final note, if you want a healing session, this is your absolute last point of call before the 8-8. So the next 8 days, if you would like a quantum 2-hour healing session with me, this will no longer be offered. After this point of time, I will be transitioning in completion. And if this excites you as well, wealth transformation sessions, working on consciousness to create a bandwidth and a streamline of information for wealth, abundance, purpose, divine blueprint reading, and the ability to live aligned by your soul, whatever that is. So you can do one-on-ones, or you can go into a deep dive blueprint, soul business, dharmic path building mentorship with me. So if that feels true, please do reach out. Find my links. My website is giaariati.com, and we will connect next Thursday, 10 a.m. Brisbane Standard Time. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you.